know, when's the last time you made a big change in your life? And if we're not making big changes and time goes by, years go by, chop wood, carry water, do the work, daily routine, and you don't make any changes, then you have to say, uh-oh, because if you don't make a change is going to come to you. So I was realizing, like, oh, some years have gone by and I haven't made any big changes. What's going on here? Then I took some trips to California, and I used to live in California, and I love California. I'm one of those, I love California people. And I was born and raised in Detroit, and California's a very long way in mentality and culture and everything. So when I was 18, I moved out to California and lived there. And the day I moved, I met my best friend, Tamara, and her family, and today we're still best friends. And I always knew, when I left California, I always knew, I'll be back. I'm not going to live in Los Angeles, but I'll be back to California. So in our teaching, we can think a thought and know it to be true, and it will eventually come true. So long story short, I lived in Atlanta, and I got here and I was like, this is nice, but 2 years max. Several years later, I'm still living in California. My friend's like, weren't you going to move back to California at some point? I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to come in cold. You know, I want a soft landing. I want to be prepared. I want everything set up. I want a career, a job. She's like, okay. So years go by. I go out to California, I'm on the flight, and the gentleman next to me, I see under his flannel shirt, he has a Harley t-shirt on. I'm like, are you a rider? He's like, yeah. And he rides, he lives in Malibu and rides the Canyon, one of the 10 best top motorcycle rides in the country. So I'm like, do you take passengers? Because I love riding on the back of motorcycles. So yeah, so we all had it all set. And then so I go to Tamara and I'm like, hey, I met this guy in the airplane, I'm gonna go for a motor. You are not, you're here for 3 days, you're not gonna disappear with some guy I've never even met. And no, and I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, look, I'm coming in November. So we arranged that I would come a day early and then we would take this motorcycle ride. I also happen to know a friend in Ojai, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in your area, and in California it's a spread out. We think Atlanta's spread out, California's very spread out. So he lives an hour away. I'll be in Malibu on such and such day, you know, I'd love to catch up. Sure. So I did, I arranged my trip. I came a day early and went to the ashram there for Paramahansana Yoginandi's place, and it was just incredible. I was doing a meditation, they were under construction, and I started crying during the meditation that I do every day, and I'm like, why am I crying? And then I realized, oh, Gandhi's ashes were, you know, just 20 feet away from me. So it was already, it's magical things happen in California. That's why I like California. So I had the most incredible ride. We were on the Malibu Canyons and Mulholland Drive, oceans on this side, peaks of mountains on that side for miles as far as the eye could see. It's just breathtakingly gorgeous. So have a ride of a lifetime up there, and then met my friend. And my friend lives in Ojai, which is a spiritual community, like up in the mountains, a very small community. And I'm like, oh my God, you look fantastic. You look happier than I've ever seen you in the years that I've known him. What is it? You know, what have you done? What are you doing? And he says, it's California. And I'm like, I know all about how wonderful California is. He's like, well, why do you say it like that? And I said, oh, one day I want to move back, but the opportunity hasn't presented itself. Oh, well, that's fantastic, because I need some help. I've got so many clients. I'm working in the Montecito area, which is a wealthy community. I have workshop ideas. Like, I can't do it all by myself. We should get together and work a plan and do this. I'm like, are you kidding? And he's like, no, I really need it. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing going on between you and I, right? You know this, right? She's like, yeah. Don't worry, I got this girlfriend and she's so hot. And I'm like, okay, good, that part's taken care of. So then I was like, this could work. So we talked more about it, and then I brainstormed with Tamara, and she's all about me moving to California. She's like, you can live on my couch, I don't care, like, you're my family, I want you here. And she's married and she has 2 beautiful children, and they all love me and welcome me, it's all my family, so that's good too. And I don't want to live in LA, so his complex where he lives, the landlord has a room for me. So it's like all perfectly set. And I'm like, okay, this is divine order talking. So I came back to Atlanta and I thought about it. So the three things, there's so many things that I wanted to share with you today, but I boiled it down to three main points. One is self-care, how important self-care is on the spiritual path, and even if no one is awake spiritually, self-care is still very important, but more so on the spiritual path because it's a very individual world, and sometimes we're in places and spaces that have no references from our life previously. So when we're on the spiritual path and we can do self-care, it gives us a consistency that we can depend on. So for me, I do my prayers and meditations in the mornings. I do a workout with my guy we do it through video. I do trade session because I do subconscious work with my clients. So I trade with a colleague and we do that twice a month. And I have a mastermind partner every Friday we check in, and we're not setting goals and money, things like that. We're setting intentions for ourselves for the week based on our experiences currently. So those are some self-care techniques that I do. The other thing I wanted to talk about is one person. It just takes one person to make a very big difference in our life. So when I'm stepping out into this adventure that I don't know, there's no guarantees, like how's this gonna happen? When's this gonna do? All these questions come up, but I know it just takes one person. So I'm just looking for one person. And I know that I'm that one person for the people in my life because a part of my job description is to make a difference. So one person can make a difference. So as I go through these stories, think about how you're that one person and how you can make a difference in other people's lives. And the third thing is when change, let's call it change, crisis, drama, just call it change. When change happens, to not react, but to pause and self-resource. So when I say self-resource, because on the spiritual path, there's not a lot of exterior resources, not a lot of physical resources, or people who live in a different consciousness than we do won't get like, what do you mean you're moving to California? Why? Well, there's no particular reason, I just want to expand. Expand what? Expand me, expand my experiences, expand my business, expand my reach. Why are you moving to California? Because people don't get us. So if I'm inner resource, I can depend on those things. And as I develop on my spiritual path, my relationships with my inner resources, now I can really, really count on those to be more real and true than what goes on in the media, in the news, in the world. So one resource is our instinct. And this is a yes or no. It's basic. It's our animal instinct. Should I stay in this predicament or should I run like hell? So it's a yes or no, and it's in our gut. So science is catching up with us. They say, we have a brain here, and we also have another brain. It's like a chemical brain. When we become more and more refined, we start understanding that chemistry is very much an indicator of what's going on in our life. Our emotions are chemical. And then the other one is my heart. So not my heart for love, but my heart for my soul. Like my heart for my purpose in life. So if I'm living true to my nature and to why I'm here and who I am and what is my purpose here, I'm listening to my heart, and my heart says, yes, move forward. Or no, it sounds good, but that's not for you. So I'm listening to my heart, my soul talking to me, my higher self speaking through my heart. And then my brain, I put that to work. So instead of it running around like a bunch of gerbils up there, I say, okay, you're in charge of what's common sense, something we don't even talk about these days, because before, common sense was ingrained in us as children, but nowadays, people are like, well, common sense, like, I don't know what that is. So common sense, what makes sense, what's a logical, practical thing for you to do now, and things that are reasonable. So even on the spiritual path, when things seem completely unreasonable, there are versions that are still reasonable even on the path. So those are my inner resources. And my emotions, they don't get to be on the voting committee. They're a part of the whole program, but they don't get voting. So when the idea of moving to California came up, my emotions sprung up. Like, California? So my Kermit the Frog, you know, where he goes, ah! So that part came up, and I'm like, yeah, good. Okay, you're not in charge of anything, I'm glad you're really excited. And then my worrier part is like, but wait, you're a grown person, like you don't really move to California in the middle of your life. Like, is this a midlife crisis? Like, what's going on here? I don't know about this, right? Okay, thank you, I heard you. And then my romantic part is like, oh, maybe we'll meet Mr. Right, you know, maybe we'll meet that guy. And, you know, and then, so my jaded Detroit person is like, really? You didn't even watch that much Disney. Like, why are you still like? And then another part of me is like, you know, my philosopher, perhaps this is another version of my nun lifetimes of, you know, because in past lives I've been nun and monk, and I'm clear about that. I'm like, maybe you're just living another nun version of your life, but you get to have your own temple and your own lifestyle, and you don't have to wear the habit anymore. So my romantic part says to my Detroit girl, you have a bad attitude and you're no fun. So we just have to negotiate. So you can see there's a lot going on. I don't have to talk to anybody, there's a lot going on. So the idea came to California, okay, so there's a whole long story there that we don't have time to share. But I moved there, and it ended up, I got to Ojai, and then the guy, so we're doing work, I put him on my morning program, because he's kind of a airy-fairy sort of person, and it grounded him. You know, I'm firstborn, German, Aries, and self-employed since I was a teenager. So I know how to get things done and get things organized and get things moving. So he said after a few weeks, he's like, God, you're really good for me. My world has really taken off and I'm doing great. I'm like, yeah, so remember this conversation we had about like why I'm here and all of this? And he said, you know, I'm just so busy, I really can't help you. And I'm like, excuse me? That's not a part of the plan. And he's like, no. And I said, no, I needed you to introduce me to people because remember I was going to do home management in Montecito because they only have a 40% occupancy rate. So only 40% of Montecito is actually living there. The rest of these mansions are unoccupied because it's people's third and fourth home. So being a realtor and being a minister, I'm a perfect person to do house sitting for them while they're gone. So that was going to be my living place. And he, knowing the Montecito people, could get me into that community, and that would be that. So that was that plan. Reasonable, right? Logical, right? So, but no, he's too busy to make these introductions. So I'm like, And then I just went to inner resources, because I knew arguing with him or trying to like shake sense into him was a waste of energy. So when we're walking the tightrope of adventure, of putting ourselves out into something new, we don't have time for drama. Drama will come, but we don't have time to buy into drama or to get upset by drama. So we have to stay on our straight and narrow. So, okay, so my resources, I was doing self-care, and I was just doing my internal resources as well here. And then I was like, okay, I need one person to help me to get out of this. A lady on Facebook is like, oh, you have to meet Hale. You have to meet Hale. And I'm like, I don't even know this lady. Who's this lady? Okay, yeah, I have to meet Hale because my new job in California is to meet new people. So I'm like, hey, Hale, this lady, yeah, me too. Okay, we met for lunch and we hit it off completely well. He's like a grandpa type person, and very gentle. We spoke the same language, we knew the same things, had a 2-hour lunch, and it was great. And he lives in Carpinteria, which is a small beachside community. Ojai's a mountain area. Santa Barbara and Montecito are other towns over in here. So we met and hit it off, and he said, listen, I usually go to Atlanta 6 weeks at a time and rent my house out while I'm gone. No one's renting it, so if you and your cat, Samantha, want to come and spend the weekend there as you're moving to, propagating or meeting new people in Santa Barbara, you're more than welcome to. And I said, okay, great. Which is a very generous offer, but when you meet a brother or a sister or somebody you really connect with, you can trust them, you know who they are. So that was the deal. And then, so I'm sitting in Ojai with my friend, who's not being my friend right now, and I'm like, oh my God. So I couldn't be mad at him, but I was very angry because this is not cool. So instead of dealing with him, I had to deal with my anger. So me and my anger had to sit day after day. I'm mad, I know you're mad, but this, and so back and forth, until I could calm it down. And then so I just moved through that. And then one day, and I would just sit at the edge of my bed, because I had nowhere to go, nothing to do. So I would just sit on my bed and work these things out. And then one day I felt anxious. And I'm not an anxious person. I'm an emotional person, but I'm not an anxious person. And I'm like, whoa, this is not cool. I don't like feeling anxious. What is this anxiousness all about? And I got radio silence. So when I get radio silence from my spiritual voices inside and my resources inside, I know that I just need to be still. Be still and be aware. And it said, get out, get out, get out, get out. And I was like, this is scary now. So I'm like, okay, how do I get out? How do I get out? And it's not that when fear comes in, it stops so we can make a decision. Fear comes in and stays until we make a decision. So I realized like, oh, Hale, let me call Hale. And I said, Hale, I can't afford your whole month thing, but can I come and live there, and I'll pay you this and whatever. And he's like, yeah, that sounds fine. Come on down. So I drove down the mountain, got the key, he left. And then I'm like, that's it. I packed everything up and I moved down there. And had Thanksgiving, and that was lovely, and then came back. December 4th, my friend Hale calls, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Are you okay? And he's like, no, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And he's like, look out the window. And I look out the window, and we have mountains coming out here, and the beach is over there. And I see this giant red cloud moving quickly across the sky. And I've never seen a red cloud before. I said, Hale, there's a red cloud out there. That looks kind of like fire. He's like, yes, the mountain's on fire. Ojai is on fire. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So I said, okay, what do I do? And he's like, nothing. You do nothing for now, just keep an eye on the fire. I'm like, but the mountains are on fire, and I can see the fire. And he's like, yeah, I know, but just stay cool and stay informed. So TV, by the way, is not a resource. TV is entertainment, TV is paid programming. So forget the news. The news is not what you think it's supposed to be, so don't depend on that. So the resource that I have is a government agency websites. So when an emergency happens, that's where you go. Forget TV, they'll just make you more crazy. So the government resources, so where's the fire, how's the fire moving, they give maps and so on like that. No drama, just the facts map. So I started following the resources there. And of course I'm afraid because fire's not cool. I'm a pyromaniac, I love fire, but not that kind of fire. It's a little too big for me. So I'd go out in the street and I'd look around because our human nature, right? Just like our animal nature, you would go and look around. There's a guy watering his plants, another lady's checking her mail. I'm like, and they're used to it because it's California. A gentleman let me park my trailer in his floristry, his nursery place. He's an older guy, and I'm like, tell me about this fire, like what's going on? And he said, listen, this is day 3 now. And he said, I've lived here for 35 years, and we're in a safe place, the fire's not gonna come over here. His employees were coming, everybody's work as usual, they were just wearing masks. And I thought, wow, this is pretty brave. So I'm like, I'm brave, I'm brave, okay, I can handle this. And then the fires were getting closer and closer. I'm like, okay, I've been in 5 hurricanes already. So I'm like, listen, universe, I've done this natural disaster thing. I'm pre-qualified. Like, I shouldn't be in this. And they're like, okay, you know what to do. So I said, well, part of the hurricane thing was preparation, to be very prepared, because the more prepared we are, the better off we are. So, like for us here in Atlanta, we're not going to have fires, but we could still have a power outage. We've got CDC here, we've got the big major airport here, we've got 7 million people here, so things could get crazy. So for us, we need food, we need water, and for me, I have a conspiracy part. Out of all my funny parts here, I've got a conspiracy part that's like, okay, you know, they're after us. Why are they burning? Why are they burning the state? 8,000 fires happened last year in California. So we only see them on the news because they're interesting. But in the meantime, when you live in a dry climate like that, to have 8,000 fires in one state in 1 year is tremendous. So I said, okay, I'm going to evacuate because I don't want to be on the freeway with this mountain on fire and nowhere to go except for the ocean. I'll go now. So I went down to LA and I just sat there and I felt kind of foolish because nothing was happening. So I was like, well, I just guess I'll go home now. So then I drove back up there and no, there was a lot going on. There was fire, there was smoke. I got the trailer and I went back down and I ended up evacuating 5 times altogether. The fire lasted an entire month and it was crisis. And so it's very taxing on our emotional body and on our social situation. So then things finally settled down. On one of the evacuations, I went north and it was, you know, you just run. You just resource and you run. So I came back to Atlanta, had a nice Christmas, went back, and on the 9th of January, we had a mudslide. Because the fires had burned all the underbrush and the trees, any kind of water, it turns more into like an avalanche. So the water seeps in and takes out huge pieces of land. And what we had in our community was like fatigue, crisis fatigue. There's a name for it. And we were just like, so the news was, get the hell out of Dodge. There's, you know, rain coming, mudslide. And we were like, yeah, can't move. Thanks for the warning, but I'm staying home. So we got the notices and nobody could move because they were exhausted from evacuating in the fires. And the mudslide came because one rain cell decided that it was going to land right over Montecito, where Oprah Winfrey and Ellen DeGeneres happen to live. And in that particular ravine, there is a pipe that holds the reservoir water for Montecito, and the pipe broke. So the entire reservoir emptied as well. That did not make the news, because people in power don't want people to know that, but that's what happened. And 23 people died. So me being an empath and wired the way I am, when that happened, I sat on the edge of my bed for 3 days because the cell tower also, so we had no internet. So, and we were landlocked because we couldn't go south, we couldn't go north. And I was already told, you know, you may be landlocked in Carpinteria. So I sat on the bed and I could feel everything. I could feel the fear, the trauma, the rescuers, the family members, the people who lost their lives, missing people, and it was really intense. So I did those 3 things. I inner-resourced, I kept consistent with the things that I know, and one of the things that I know for self-care is nature. So I'm always going to nature. And then it passed, but the shock of the thing was with us all. And people either gather or they retreat when there's a crisis, when there's a loss. So these people all retreated. I didn't even know why I was there, but I felt I was there on purpose. So I spent the rest of the year just moving through, developing communities, getting to know people. There was another fire, and another fire, and then in Thousand Oaks I found another spiritual center, my kind of people, and it was really wonderful. And then they had a fire in November, and they had a shooting in their neighborhood as well. And it was like, now I'm there for them. And I'm like, why am I here? What's going on here? And I think I'm here to have this experience, to use these tools so I can come back here. So at any time in our future, that we know we have tools. They're built in. We know where we are always protected, we are always guided. So when we still ourselves and we listen to what's happening and why it's happening, these are the things that we can depend on. So when the world's in chaos, when there's a hurricane spinning around us, to stay in the eye of the storm, to stay in the I am of that storm, so we can stay centered, so we can be clear, so we can be protected and resourced. So this is what I wanted to share. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in your life, and so it is. And now we're going to do a treatment. If you could unfold your body. So in that one person, I came to know that one is actually all. We all are that one thing that gives us life. We're aspects of it, individualized aspects of it. There's an allness to the universal consciousness. I am a part of that all. You are a part of that all. So instead of looking for that one person, what I know is the allness. All. All men are my husband, my friend, my brother, my father. All women are my sister, my kindred heart, my confidant, my playmate. All children are my gods and goddesses, my teacher, my human angel. All elders are my grandfather and grandmother, my ancestors, my older self talking to me face to face. We are all in this together. We are all here on purpose. We are all here to love and be loved. It's that easy and it's that simple. I'm grateful to know this. I'm grateful to be this and to share this. We can relax into this allness within the one. Releasing this treatment into the consciousness, and so it is.